All right, there. Good to see, good to be. It's another episode of the Vibe Union podcast. I believe we're up to Saskia. Is it episode 43 by chance, or is it 44?
You know what? I think it could be 43, but I could be wrong.
Hey, how about I take 1 second just to actually double check that, because I don't think we can go forward without knowing such a thing, such a fine detail.
Pretty integral.
Oh, integral, if you will. Integers. Podcast. It's not actually there. David,
David, what are you doing?
this is episode 43. Welcome to episode 43. Today we're joined by photographer, viber, content, extravagant, extraordinaire, content extraordinaire.
Pretty exaggerate. No, I was going to say exaggerant, but that's not a word.
An exaggerator of many sorts. And yeah, a bit of a steezer, you know, kind of embracing one's own style and swagger. Everybody make a lot of noise and love for Saskia.
Whoop, whoop. Hell yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Last minute, you know, we just had to fucking squeeze one in there, you know, before the end of the week to get something out on Monday. So appreciate
Respect
you.
the hustle.
Yes, I appreciate you being part of the hustle. You are one with the hustle, I would say.
Hustler.
Yes, a or the hustler. Before we get right into it, though, it's important that we get grounded. You know how it is, Saskia.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to acknowledge that we're recording and producing on the land that was the traditional custodians of the land were the Boonwurrung and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. You know, they have been here tens of thousands, potentially 100,000 years. You know, we're talking history, and what we think of history is not quite what it is. So I'd like to acknowledge the elders past, present, and emerging. You know, state that sovereignty was never ceded and that history was deleted. And it is wise to be thoughtful and considerate and aware of such things, isn't it, Saskia?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, welcome everybody again to another episode of the Vibe Union podcast. We've had the clarification. This is 44. We're on the way to 50 and 500. Today's episode is going to be off the top of the dome. There is no prep when it comes to the pep and the step that Saskia brings to the Vibe Union team. I appreciate the giggle there. So for those who don't know, Saskia came into our fold about a year and a half or so. Does that sound right? Year and a half?
It would have been a year ago.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the 12th, was a year ago, the week after I sent you the photos from the first lyrebird.
From the first lyrebird.
Boyd.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Cool. So you've actually noted the year anniversary. Well, congratulations
Yes.
and thanks for being on board for a year. Unbelievable.
Thank you for having me. It is pretty unbelievable. I was reminiscing on it yesterday. It's nice to be back in sunny St Kilda for, almost a little pay homage to.
Yes.
The second lyrebird that I rocked up to. I'm actually also going to go shoot Kanani, who was there the first time that I met Vibe Unit at Land Backfest. I think it was like the 20th of January.
Yeah, that sounds about right. A few days before the old invasion day. Cool. So let's just we'll start with a little bit of an origin story. So Saskia, if you could tell us a little bit about what was happening before you came onto the first Vibe Union Lyrebird event that you came to. Tell us about like what you're up to and what kind of path you're on before you stumbled into us.
Yeah, so I had actually finished my thesis in literature. So I wrote my thesis on intergenerational mother-daughter abuse and trauma cycles in the psychological thriller. And was on my holidays and kind of coming out of lockdown, just said to myself, like, I don't want to be stuck in my house. I don't want to be sitting around with my mates, in houses, just sitting on top of each other. Like, I want to go out and throw myself into life. And one of my friends had invited me along to Land Backfest, and I was like, fuck yeah, this is kind of what I'm about. And at that point in time, I was considering going into my PhD. But I was kind of enjoying life, enjoying the freedom that I had at that point, enjoying throwing myself into my art and craft, getting back into photography as well. Rocked up to land back, saw an amazing lineup, saw you guys, and then came along, took a couple photos, and
you're saying we weren't an amazing
Oh no, I was
part of
actually
the
blown
amazing.
away with
No,
you
I'm
guys.
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh no, I was absolutely blown away, and I thought that you guys were actually, really professional. I thought that you were not to say a lot bigger than what you were, but you guys were quite small. You just started out doing live shows as well. Absolutely blown away. Just loved the vibe. I think Amutha came up and we had a little chat to her. Rocked up to the library because I saw on Instagram that you had put on a gig. Rocked up. Amutha remembered us, which is a little bit of a shock and a big compliment, the fact that she remembered us. And then got infected with the vibes and couldn't stop coming. And then somehow made my way in here, just followed you guys around with a camera, and now I'm the resident photographer. So that's a little bit of an achievement.
A great achievement. It shows a lot of initiative, a bit of drive on your end, like a bit of I guess, you knew that the other option was to be home alone, isolated, not connecting, not doing the things that might nourish your soul and your mind.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it. Definitely like on that kind of fork in the road aspect of, do I go and do something that I've been doing for so long and absolutely enjoying, which is taking photos, and definitely branching out in taking photos and sending them to people as well, and doing live gigs, which is something that I had always wanted to do but never kind of pushed myself to actually do. And I still remember the first time I sent you guys the photos from the first live bird, and I put my phone on silent, put it in another room, just pure panic, so anxious. And I think a few months in, kind of had to sit down with my auntie and was like, I don't want to do my PhD. Like, I just want to see where this is going. I want to throw myself into this, and didn't look back.
So you saw an amount of opportunity and not only opportunity, what's this other word? So opportunity and potential with the whole Vibe Union thing enough to brush aside the PhD for a bit. That kind of speaks volumes for, I guess, like maybe what you were witnessing or experiencing at the time. And to be honest, I feel like all the members of Vibe Union have been consistently feeling something similar. You're very aware that a month or a couple months ago, I stopped my full-time job to not just be more involved with Vibe Union, but that was certainly one of the big reasons why I did, because, this is 2 years in, and the growth keeps coming, and the collective calls to us to maybe give up what we feel like is the right societal decision to surrender to, creativity and performance and all that kind of exciting stuff. So big ups to you for taking that super leap of faith, I guess.
Cheers. And also, proud of you as well, and your decision to move away from the work life and throw yourself into freelancing as well. It's huge. Yeah. It's a struggle, but it's also really rewarding as well.
Yeah, huge and scary. So dipping back to, initially when you took the shots for us at Lyrebird, and for people who don't know, this is all out of, these are actions of goodwill. You weren't like, hey, I'm a photographer. If you give me, $50 or $100 or $200, I'll shoot you the photos, and we can do business. You've been full of offerings for a very long time. I guess what made you have that approach? I mean, you were saying that you hadn't shot live gigs and stuff at that point, and Lyrebird was pretty small and cozy and can kind of enable most people to do what they need to do around a live performance. But what was your mindset behind that?
I guess so. Where I was at, my photography, I've been taking photos now for about 12 years. I think I'm going to the 13th year.
Right.
And my photography wasn't a lot of people. In that it was either candids of my friends, and they don't really have. Like, I don't think I sent any of the photos to people, which seems a little bit creepy. Just have like a shoebox full of photos of like old friends and stuff. But
Yeah.
was mostly just like, I call it theft and shrubbery, just walking around and stuff. And it was always like a personal thing. Like, I went out to take photos for me, and I just love to share the photos. I think I had gotten into a space where I just wanted to share the photos that I'd taken, and it felt a little bit weird, especially taking photos of people on stage, not to give them and be like, hey, this is you. But
Right.
rocking up to Lyrebird, I think the first shots that I actually took, I thought they were horrendous and I had to edit them, which I didn't really usually do. And then I actually fixed up one of my actual good cameras, and I invested in some really nice film.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the second Lyrebird that I came to, I took some really just gorgeous photos and started throwing myself into the photography aspect and just really challenging myself with the live scene. And after seeing those photos, and 1 year ago yesterday, like, blew me away, and I was like, no, I'm actually really good at this. And now that I have the capacity to buy good film, to have this camera that I've been shooting on finally fixed, and be able to like step it up from my shitty point and shoot that I've been using for the years prior, just wanted to share them. I was so happy. I was so proud of them. I thought they were stunning. Everyone loved the photos that I had originally taken, which I wasn't super happy with. And so like to show them these other nice photos was really awesome. To see them being posted, even the ones that I personally hated, which were like a longer shutter, a little bit, I say dodgy or sketchy, but like shaky and blurry and stuff. Like, people loved them more. And so it just made me really happy to be able to share that with people. For people even to stop and say like, the photos you've taken are beautiful, thank you so much. And it wasn't really what I was doing it for, but I always still come back to that first kind of comment, which was a year ago yesterday, when MQ Mash, congratulations on the wedding.
Congratulations and shout outs.
Had stopped me and had said, thank you so much for the beautiful photos. And I can't really take compliments. So I was like, thank you so much for giving me something beautiful to photograph. And then he stopped and he was like, I was watching you while I was doing my set. And I was kind of thinking in my brain, like, I wish that you would sit down and I wish that she would sit down and enjoy the show. But then I realized that that's how you experience the world. And having that said to me, it was almost like this thought that I had in my brain that hadn't been put into words. And so to be seen like that, to acknowledge the fact that, like, while I say that I'm a writer, while I say that I'm a researcher, while I can be all these different things, the one integral thing that's been the most important to me throughout all of my years has been taking photos, which was such a huge momentous moment. And I loved it. Like, I thoroughly loved it. I loved the support that I was getting for the first time in my life, because I was sharing those photographs, the love and appreciation, and just the fun of being at this event, the fun of also buying new film, trying it out, testing different techniques in this like very fast-paced, moment-heavy kind of event and situation to be taking photographs in. So I loved it. I loved sharing it with people. I loved the energy. I loved the vibes. Yeah, and you guys just couldn't shake me. It was a little bit of a fly on the wall scenario there, and then just kept showing up with my camera and my film and threw myself into it.
Yeah, well, I think you were demonstrating one of the qualities that we are kind of either seek or encourage in Vibe Union, and that is just kind of showing up and doing your thing. We're happy to give people, some people require a level of permission or acceptance before they can kind of do their thing, and that's very warranted and fine, and we're very happy to do that. But often what is very cool if somebody like yourself just comes up, does the thing without having to create layers of expectation around what you're doing or what we want you to do or what we think would be good for you to do. So it's really cool how you were able to pretty much instantly embody this kind of spirit of like, show up, be you, do you, kind of thing at VU.
Be you and be you.
Yeah. So you were starting shooting on the film, which, for some younger generations is like, what? And it's interesting because there is a lot more investment in the consumables and the materials to make that work.
Yeah.
For you, had film always been the easy choice for you, like the analog over digital? I guess the question is, why were you shooting film? And yeah, why were you shooting film? And
Why was
then,
I shooting film?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I, for those who don't know and who haven't seen my study, um, I love retro tech. I am obsessed with it. I have reel to reels of record. I've got cassette collection which is out the wazoo. Like I fucking just enjoy it so much.
Mm.
And I was brought up by two very heavy like antique lovers and lovers of all of that. And my grandfather was a photographer. Both my grandfathers were photographers. My father was a photographer. And one day my mum came home with the same camera that I'm still using now, which was a Minolta. And I don't think she could sell it off or anything. I think it was a pretty cheap camera. Now you can sell a camera that I've gotten for like a 5-finger discount and it's like $300. Like, geez.
Yeah, right. It's funny how those things kind of change up in price and value quite wildly.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a little bit of a hell situation with lockdown and everything because there has been like film shortages and because it is back in fashion, so to speak. It is making film a lot more accessible, but then also during COVID, there was not a lot of film to go around. So that was always a little bit of a pain. But yeah, no, I got this camera. There was a stop on Chapel Street just next to the Yas store, which is around the corner from where I went to high school and just up the road from when I went to primary school.
Yep.
And they had $4 black and white film. They let me come in with 10 rolls and I would slowly pay it off. Like they just loved the fact that there was a 12-year-old in there taking photos, so passionate about it.
Cool.
So they were super supportive. And yeah, I loved the aspect of film. I loved having to wait to get the photos back. I loved dropping it off in the morning, getting my mum to drop it off and then coming after school and being like, oh my God, I got the photos. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think also for a big part of me, there's two kind of aspects of it. One, it was a nice way for me to be able to remember and process through things as a child and still now. Like I'm kind of notorious for going on long walks. And I can look at the photos that I've taken on that walk and I know immediately what I'm thinking. And so I can bring myself back to that moment and remind myself of these times. So I liked being able to capture and document these things for myself. But then also there's the aspect of like I reference to the way I shoot, calling it theft and shrubbery.
Theft and shrubbery?
Theft and shrubbery, yeah. So as a kid and still now, I take a lot of photos of like out the front of people's houses and stuff. And it's based off of this story of, why do I always forget his bloody name? It's a comedian off of Would I Lie to You? But he's talking about this game that him and his friends used to play where they used to break into someone's backyard and ever slowly they'll get closer and closer to the back door saying like, I do beg your pardon, but I am in your garden. And then when someone caught them, they all had to run and jump over the fences to get back. And I loved that. And so there was a joke of like, why'd you call it theft and shrubbery? Because I understand the shrubbery part. And they're like, we always felt like we were stealing something, like their privacy or something. And so like taking photos, it's a great piece.
It's great.
Yeah, taking photos of people's houses and things. There's a little bit of psychoanalysis in there. I think we could psychoanalyze that, but I'm going to save that for a later date as to why I would. But it always felt like I was stealing something or like taking a photo of a candid of someone. I was stealing their privacy in that moment. And that wasn't like a perversive thing, but it was just nice to be able to show someone later, here's a candid photo. This is how I see you, this is who you are when you're not posing. Because everyone gets really disappointed when you pose for a photo and it doesn't come out the way that you want it to.
Wait. Hold up. Are you saying...
I'm going on a little tangent.
No. I mean, this is fantastic. I just have a quick idea. So through your photography, there's an element of theft or stealing or taking, but then you're saying that you kind of do that often if there's like a particular subject or person in mind, a study, that you would like give it back to them, and it sounds kind of almost like a Robin Hood kind of method where it's like you take from this person who has this thing that maybe is desired or envied or there's some kind of reaction to. You kind of take it and you kind of repackage it and give it back to them, I guess, hopefully making both parties feel somewhat better about the exchange.
Yeah, I guess. I know personally, I hate it when someone's like, hey, pose and stand and smile in this photo, because I'm always going to be disappointed in how I look in it.
Yeah.
Because I'm stressed. My smile isn't real. It's a put on smile. I'm having to think about how I'm looking. I also hate being behind a camera. I think that's just a photographer thing.
Yeah, no, I feel that 100%.
Yeah, yeah, right. But to be able to take a photo in the like candid photo, you know, there's no posing. They're just naturally being them, and I think they shine through in that moment. And so being able to take a photo and give it back to them, they always love it a lot more than a posed photo. Like whenever I take a photo with someone and they're posing, they're like, "Oh, I don't like the fact that my double chin's in there. I don't like the fact that I'm not smiling. Or I look weird. It's not right," because you have an expectation in your mind of what the photo is going to look like.
Yeah, there's such a. So you go.
Oh no, you go.
It's such a fine thing to juggle, like both the awareness of the subject and the photographer, the awareness of the thing that's happening, the awareness of both like parties involved, and then like trying to move away from that to to capture, you know, the perfect moment, right? I guess like if you're too tuned into this being a photo shoot and I'm having to pose and this and that, then yeah, I think you were using the word expectation before. It kind of creates some weird expectations around what you think is a good pose compared to what is a nice natural pose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so like that aspect of theft and shrubbery comes in of like, yeah, I might be stealing someone's privacy in that moment. Like they don't know that there's a camera on them and so they're not ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
But they always come out so much nicer. They love them so much. Like my favorite photos are always of candids. They're just in the moment. And I think there's also an aspect of it comes back to the second philosophy around film photography of not only are you taking away like the anonymity of this subject, especially when it comes to houses and old buildings that I prefer to take photographs of and have been, because for me, it feels like they shouldn't have been captured, and now that they are, they're forever like embedded in history. Whereas they would usually be torn down and forgotten because the families moved out of it or whatever. And I think that kind of came out of especially the heightened moment around that time when I started taking photos of gentrification in St Kilda, where I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to lose that history. I didn't want to lose my own history. You know, there's a whole lot of reasons behind it. But when it comes to the second philosophy, like when you think about the metaphysics of film, you're literally stealing a little bit of light from that moment and it's forever encased within the film. And so there's an aspect of like, you know, there's those tales of like cameras stealing people's souls and a lot of different cultures believing that and etc. And like, you know, the whole ghost thing on film, you can't capture it on a digital camera or whatever. But yeah, like I love that aspect of like I'm taking a little bit of this with me forever. This is what I'm capturing. It's the light of this moment. It's the light of a person. It's all these different things, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and also which made me appreciate those shaky, blurry, overdeveloped, overexposed shots of people when they're moving, and you get these crazy forms. Because not only is it capturing movement, but it's capturing like the light of that movement, capturing that moment.
Yeah,
so
like a spirit trail of sorts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it took me a long time to really appreciate those photos for what they were. And I was always like watching people post them and I'm like, why are you posting these ones? There's so many nicer photos. But,
well, it's something because it's actually giving us another way to see life, which is both static and moving at the same time. And it's not just a normal, because, you know, photography has become quite, is ubiquitous the word? Like it's very, it's heavily shared. It's in everyone's hand. It's very accessible. It's something that we all partake in.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between like, you know, taking a photo and, as you would put it, like capturing somebody's light, you know, that's a whole different other perspective or philosophy behind the use of the camera in the first place, which I think is actually, it really instills a lot more value and worth into that experience, which is beautiful. I just want to return to the whole like process of the longer process of getting film developed and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel like through that process you were kind of taking part in this delayed gratification, or is like this you know, this kind of thing is worth the wait instead of just having like there's a flat image right there in front of me. It's like this needs time for it to have life. Is that kind of what was happening?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was an excitement. If I don't know, like I can remember the shots that I've taken, but I don't know how they're going to come out. I don't know if my settings are right. I don't know if the film stock is what I should have used.
Mm.
And I think exploring more with different film stocks, exploring more with like, I would say, and I have it in my bio, like an abomination in the eyes of like editors and developers, because I fuck my films so heavily. Like I'll soup it, I'll fuck up the exposure and the ISO, dual film terms.
What does it mean to
I'll
what does it mean to soup?
Soup is when you put in a roll of film and you put it and you soak it in a whole lot of different chemicals and then you boil it and then you dry it out and you shoot on top of it and it becomes super wacky, super like psychedelic. So I had this rolls in lockdown where I soaked them in just this absolute monstrous concoction of chemicals, dried them out, and then I triple exposed them. I think I have this photo of Yuki and there's 5 different Yukis in it because I've taken 5 photos on top of it. And it's this super trippy, really psychedelic pink tones. Like it looks like it's been tie-dyed. So that's what souped film is. And it's literally a developer's worst fucking nightmare. So
Right. So
yeah.
an error or a mistake in some people's eyes is like an opportunity in others. You know, it's like, oh, this is different, therefore almost desirable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so like I love to screw around with it. I think like some of my favorite shots as well is I'll use a 400 film, which means that it needs more light to be developed. So it's a harder film than an 800. And 800 is what you use at nighttime. So I work between 800 to 3200 at gigs and stuff. So that way it's not blurry. But then I took a 400 film and I made the settings to shoot on an 800. So it's not as clear, but the contrast in the light, there's that photo of Elf with the blue light kind of framing his face at Lyrebird.
Yeah.
And it looks stunning. It's one of my favorite photos ever. But I should have pushed it, which is when you're developing, you develop it like an 800 film, so then you get the colors out and you brighten it up more. But I left it and let it be developed as a 400. So I experiment with the exposures. I experiment with the film stocks. And so when I drop off a film, I don't know what I'm going to get next. And I think it's gone to a point as well where I'm developing so many roles. I've got about 27 roles sitting there to be developed still. I can't remember what's on them. I can't remember the settings that I've used, but they all come out so nicely. Like I took a 3200 and I shot it in broad daylight and it's black and white, but it looks like a graphite pencil, you know, like kind of picture. And so I love seeing those different effects. So, well, I know what this is going to look like at nighttime. I know what it looks like. It's like a nice, heavy, dark, contrasted black and white shot of like typical band photos. But what if I was to shoot this at a setting of 100 and look at it and it comes out like this graphite pencil like drawing and it looks phenomenal and I love that. So
like a heavy stencil kind of thing in a way.
Yeah, like a charcoal painting even sometimes. Charcoal drawing. So
you can
definitely that degrade. Sorry.
You can paint with charcoal if you really want to.
Paint you like one of the French ladies.
It sounds like this process that you're engaging with has an element of faith to it, even though I'm guessing that you're a godless being.
Than the Milky Goddess, yes.
Other than the Milky, well said, very good. Do you find this process, all this? Do you find like the practice of photography for you to be a way in engaging with faith, belief, spirituality, the unknown, all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, in a way. So I think I described in the first podcast I was on that for me, writing was definitely more of a way of understanding the world and kind of understanding myself and my place within it. So I found writing to be more of a spiritual process in that sense. But I will say for photography, it cemented me not only in the moment, especially when it comes to analog photography, like a lot of it is mindfulness, that thing of saying like, I can remember what I was thinking, what I was going through when I was on these walks and taking these photos, because I have to be in the moment to take that photo. I have to, it's even just the process of rolling the film, getting the focus right, making sure my settings are right and like lining it up. I have to be there. It takes me out of my brain and I have to be in that moment to get the shot. So it's a practice of mindfulness. But then also to take these photos, I know exactly where in Melbourne I took those photographs. I can take you down the exact same route that I took down maybe 12 years ago to get that roll of film. So there's an aspect of belonging in it. Like I know that I'm within the world. I know that I'm here. It's an aspect of this is where I was. This is who I was at that point in time. So I think there is an aspect of I can associate myself with my world. I can associate myself within myself and my position within it.
Wow.
I also find photography is way more tethering. Like I'm not grounding. I think if I'm grounded in my life, I feel steady and I feel calm. But if I'm tethered to something, I feel like I know my place.
And you connect
And so that's
right. The tethering is
connected.
the connection. Yeah.
I always imagine it as like a red string from my brain to my heart to the ground. And like, it's just this, I'm tethered to the ground. Like I'm tethered to myself. I'm tethered throughout my body, throughout my mind. And I know where I am. And it's also a protective measure, I'm sure, as well. Like when I'm feeling anxious, if I'm going into a situation that I'm unsure about, having the camera where I can hide behind it, but I'm still being and existing, and I can still look at these photos and go, I was here, I experienced someone else, and that was my life.
Saskia, are you saying that the photography is an excuse for an existence?
I think it's less so an excuse for my existence, but certainly solidifies it for me.
Makes you feel as much you as you can in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down also to especially that aspect of taking photos at the front of other houses. I always felt like I either didn't belong or I wasn't invited in. I always feel uninvited. Or like an afterthought, or like I always felt on the outskirts, and that was just in my brain and also reflected in my photography. And so I think that is definitely, it's interesting to analyze that in retrospect to now taking photos of people and taking photos of gigs. I feel like I belong. I feel like I'm a part of this community. I feel like I'm a part of myself, and I'm now throwing myself into this new world where I am a part of a community and a collective, which is huge. But in that, having a lot of trauma, having a really quite difficult upbringing, like definitely a lot of my photography when I first started out wasn't an excuse to get out of the house, wasn't an excuse to wander, to like not be in what was happening in my head and in my society and within my world.
Right.
So I think one of the reasons why I love it is I can't remember a lot that I might have gone through. I can't remember what I've done yesterday or the day before. I can't remember shit that is 13 years ago. Like my memory is absolutely blank. It's a part of trauma. But to have these photographs, it's less so a part of existence, but I'm able to recognize when and where I was, and it gives me some certainty of my existence, that aspect, I think.
Cool. A good way to track and map your place in it all. Just a little bit of a pivot now. I'd love for you to kind of explain some of the differences from a photographer's perspective of shooting a live performance event, say like the Dusty Sessions, for example, to having a solo one-on-one private shoot with somebody like our last podcast guest, Georgia Delaney Martin.
Yeah, Georgia. So I think both of them are relatively the same in an aspect of I'm not in control. I'm just capturing this thing. So one of the reasons why I love, when I talk about candids, I still have that aspect within my personal one-on-one shoots. I'm not posing people really. I'm hanging out with them. I always give them the option. Would you like to do a studio shoot? Would you like to have a list of locations? Would you like to practice your poses and have outfits, all of them, and do that? And every single one of them are like, no, I want to go with the second option, which is like, we just hang out. We just vibe. We go to these places, wherever you have in mind, and we just take photos. And I'm always chatting and making jokes while I'm doing it and doing my thing. And the photos come out really nicely, so I enjoy that. And usually they know what they're looking for. I know how to frame it. So it's a two-way street on that front. So I like that because it is just hanging out. It's work that doesn't feel like work. Doing something like gigs, especially the last Dusty Sessions, it was absolutely packed.
Super packed.
Fucking phenomenal night.
Yeah.
And I was anxious because I was taking photos in front of a whole crowd that I had I've never shot in front of before. I was so hyper aware of, am I blocking someone's view?
Oh, baby. That's exactly my feeling as well.
Right?
During the video, and I was like, I don't want to ruin any of these beautiful moments.
Yeah.
They're all beautiful moments. I don't want to block anyone's view. I don't want anyone to
Yeah.
see like half my ass hanging out or whatever, or if I'm getting a particular shot. Fucking nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. I was so aware of myself in that moment.
Mm.
But great practice as well. Like it was a huge success for Vibe, a huge glimpse of what is to come,
Hmm.
and huge practice for both of us. And how do we put ourselves in that position? Even practicing with you at The Floor Is Yours. How do I frame this shot without getting Dilly in it? No offense, but how do
Yeah,
I
yeah.
not shoot Dilly and make sure that I'm getting only the artist?
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, because the thing is, once you kind of get past the barrier of like where should my body be in this room while doing my thing, um, from my perspective is like, well, the audience has seen it from here. Where don't they see it from? Like,
yeah,
what angles do they not see it from? And it's often diagonally opposite, where you're taking a shot
yeah,
or where anyone else is taking a shot from. And
yeah,
yeah, it is funny how that ends up. So I think what we're taking away from the comparison that you have from the live to the individual is, so both of them, there's like a lack of control, right? You're not directing things; things are happening. So it's all about like picking your place and moment. But it
yeah,
sounds like with the one-on-one, you're doing a lot more to create the vibe of openness, and
yeah, yeah.
so you've got a little bit more control over that, but you're still letting the subject or the artist or the person that you're shooting, you're still giving them a lot of power and control by establishing the grounds on which you meet,
Yeah.
and what they kind of want, which is probably they don't really know what they want until it unfolds in front of them. You just got to set up that moment, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think the difference between taking event shots, like for a while, especially when I was doing it mostly on film, and now I've swapped to doing it in digital, so now it's a lot easier for me. And I still love the editing process. There still is that aspect of surprise and delayed gratification. Where I can look at the photos, but when I'm editing, I'm like, oh, that's a nice shot. Not until I'm sitting down, I'm going through them, and I get that gratification. But when I'm working one-on-one with someone, they might send me a couple of shots, or I ask them to send me some some inspiration or something, or just like, hey, give me like 10, 15 words that describes, or like 5 words, or like, how would you describe what the vibe is that you're going for? So like I just did a shoot with Yambra, who's coming up with Mortal Cadence. I keep calling it Candescence, Mortal Cadence.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, I want like Tokyo Drift. And I was like, neon lights, perfect. I know exactly what you're looking for. We're going to Fitzroy.
Right.
And like the shots came out beautifully. And so then, Georgia sent me a couple of shots. She made a Pinterest board, which I thoroughly appreciated. I was like, okay, I know what you're going for now. I know the kind of vibe that you're seeking, which is like this really nice grainy black and white, brown tones, new tones, really urban, but still like almost fashion chic-esque. And then with Rye, I knew what he was kind of vibing because we talked about it, which is like this harsh contrast and everything. Like everyone is slightly different. I know with Kanani, when I originally did the shoot with him, he wanted these bright poppy colors, this like really nice architecture and everything, and balancing that out. And so, there's an aspect of I can get into their brain and know what they're looking for before they even really know what it is that they're specifically kind of going for. Because everyone looks at this inspiration that can come up with a Pinterest board that can give me some words, but the vision in their head isn't really cemented. They can't visualize it so much and can't describe it in a way. So to be able to like, okay, well, I say it back to them in these phrases, give them that control, but then show them. I think they have more control and understanding of what they were looking for and what they're kind of vibing and everything. I don't know. I love the process so much more taking photos at gigs at the moment. I still love taking photos at gigs, but having a little bit more one-on-one personal connection, connected to the shots. Like I remember sending, I think it was Matthew, I sent Matthew a photo and a message after the shoot with Yambra.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I know I say this after every single shoot, but this is the best one yet. But I still love them all individually for what they are, because they are all so different and are just different vibes and different energies that are captured through hanging out with that person, getting to know them more, vibing what they're vibing, getting like just really loving and appreciating that aspect. Like a lot of the time taking photos of people that I don't know, through Vibe Union and like especially you hooking me up with Kanani. Like, I said to him, I was like, I was very nervous on that day. I think it was my first proper actual personal like one-on-one shoot as well. So I was just destroyed from the night before, absolutely exhausted, being like, I love my job, I love my job, I love my job, but I'm so fucking tired.
Right.
And yes, lovely getting to know him. The more I got to know him, the better the photos came out. The vibe was up. I loved that process. Same with Yambra, same with Jeb Ross, both of which are at Mortal Cadence. And so I am leaning more into the one-on-one, photography with artists. Loving exploring their ideas with them, and then also getting asked to do more shoots in the future with them as well, and saying like, okay, well, I've done this vibe. Now I want to push it and see what else I can do in a different vibe. So I'm kind of enjoying that challenge. Shooting at gigs is a lot easier in the sense of like, been doing it for over a year now. Absolutely still love it. I think it's more of a challenge of like, I've got a loud shutter that I'm hyper aware of on my camera. And so how do I not interrupt the audience and interrupt the artist with this photo that I'm taking and make sure that the vibe is still there, that I'm still capturing this moment. I find talking blue is a little bit more difficult for that for me personally. It's so quiet, it's active listening, and I don't want to interrupt that. But yeah, that's kind of my comparison, I think.
Cool. That's a wonderful comparison. I think that's going to give a lot of people food for thoughts, if you know what I mean. Saskia, I feel like, we're kind of drawing to the end of a conclusion of another wonderful Vibe Union podcast. For those who are kind of seeking your work and maybe your services, where can they find you? Where's the best place to reach out?
You can find me on the Vibe Union website, where you can hire out a whole bunch of creators for whatever you might need. I've got my own personal Instagram and website if you want to check out the work that I do.
We'll put that up here.
Or come up to me, say hello. The next Vibe Union gig, which I think next week is Talking Blue. Then we have The Floor Is Yours.
Yeah, The Floor of Yours is on the 17th. Is that right? Floor Is Yours.
And we got our headliner, RC Walden, aka Robin, for Talking Blue on the 16th.
Perfect, on the day before. And then the week after, on the Saturday, the 26th, what do we have then, Saskia?
We have State of Oscillation, baby.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
Yeah. That is 10 hours of live house and DJs with Tandem Reserve, live art with Amutha on the canvas at Radio Bar in Fitzroy, 2 p.m. till 11 p.m. Get down. Dingo's Breakfast is on the food. It's phenomenal. Get the routine if you eat meat.
Damn.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately not going to be there, but Dilly will be taking over the photography for me for that night.
I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can capture people's light as you do.
I have no doubt in.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much. Just before we wrap this up, let's do some housekeeping. So you can find all things Vibe Union, as Saskia said, on our website, vibeunion.com.au. We are, of course, down under. Other things to keep in mind on the website and in the description of this video, we'll have a tip jar for those who are feeling wonderfully generous and they want to drop a couple digital coins our way. That sounds golden. Shout outs again to one of our contributors, Damien Marathi, who has been a generous contributor in the past. Vibe Union puts on 4+ events every month. In March 12th, we've got, as you said before, Mortal Cadence coming up. So we've got Wrath, Hana Rose, and Yambra and Jabrossi. Jebros. Yeah. Are they doing a joint thing together, or?
They are doing a joint thing together, and I think because Yambra just had a gig at Laundry, I think they've got a special guest as well jumping up on stage with them.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
So that'll be happening at Bar 303 on, I'm pretty sure it'll be the Saturday the 12th, if that is the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, keep eyes on that. Talking Blue, Floor Is Yours, Dusty Sessions, State of Oscillation, Mortal Cadence. That's 5 events that we're kind of juggling on like a 2-month cycle. Always plenty of stuff to do. You can find this podcast on all major platforms, both in video and audio forms. Saskia, thank you so much for joining us again on this podcast. Any final words for the people?
just get out there and enjoy it. Soak up the music. I'm currently waiting for St Kilda Fest to start up with the bands. Just get out, enjoy it while you can. Say hello to the photographer. They're very nervous, but also very excited that you'll be saying hello to them, and they love shooting you. That's really all my words.
Beautiful. With arms wide open. With arms wide open. My name is Dilly Dave. This has been another episode of the Vibe Union podcast. Stay tuned, stay alert, stay real. And it's your choice whether you want to stay in school or not. Signing off. Bye.
Adios.